Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Today is January 15th, and we're doing business and security stories for your hump day.
They say that what you start off doing in the new year is how you'll spend the rest of the year. That's not accurate at all. That's an old wives' tale, but let's hope that it's not, right?
Microsoft is cutting more jobs as the new year begins. Congratulations, you made it through the holiday season. Here's 10,000 more jobs.
Now, they were quick to point out that these are performance-based and not at all related to AI. Definitely not replacing jobs with AI.
It's weird, though, because Microsoft says they don't do stack ranking anymore, which was the whole, we're going to cut 8% or whatever it was, but it sure feels like that.
And as we move into a world where we can't trust anything we see, we're going to get more and more of this, and probably just a final conglomerate, one source of truth that will not be true.
This is the Getty Images and Shutterstock PR announcement. They're going to merge, and they're apparently worth $3.7 billion, which I never would have guessed.
I could believe that for Getty Images. They're very expensive to license. But now they're doing a bunch of AI stuff, so it's like, why would I license that?
Yeah. And I suspect that anybody who needs stock footage will just go to AI from now on, right? So they're going to have to, they're probably going to, it gives them a more of a bargaining chip being together because most of their money probably going to come from training data, right?
There's so many good free image sources now. I haven't used any of those for a long time, but I included that story because it's relevant if you're a graphic designer.
And when it comes to robotic replacement, there is one job that we all know isn't just threatened. They are actively doing everything they can to replace you. And one other group is trying to do what they can to stay alive.
Amazon workers in North Carolina vote on unionization next month. But it will have been too little too late because the robots are coming.
This will be the second Amazon warehouse to do that, if they do it. And we now have prices, and the hype train can depart from the station.
The TechSpot headline is Nvidia launches its RTX 50 Blackwell GPUs. $2,000 RTX 5090, $1,000 RTX 5080, 5070/Ti are $549 and $749 respectively.
Possibly add 20 to 60% to that price in a month or so.
Because of the tariffs.
So that was a flawless reading of a lot of abbreviations and numbers.
Well, he's been
Oh, yeah, he's been hyped for it for ages, yeah.
Yep.
So the biggest announcement here, I guess the most exciting part about it was that you would get 4090 performance from the budget cards.
Which seems like just lies. It's like you can get the budget card with half the VRAM can go as fast with the upscaling and frame generation technology as the old flagship card. I think that's where we're going to land, but we'll see. And we'll see if there's gamer backlash. But man, Nvidia, Nvidia, every time they do anything, if you're going to sin boldly, and they certainly do.
Could that be also true for lies?
Yeah. Nvidia CEO says his AI chips are improving faster than Moore's Law.
I don't trust anyone in a patent leather jacket.
But this TechCrunch article has a lot of words to tell you. What he's talking about specifically is just like AI operations. And so if you look at what was required for AI operations 5 generations ago, that was a floating point 64 operation. Now we have hardware accelerated 4-bit operations, which are basically good enough for AI operations. And that's the big gain from the big gain from last generation to this generation is that it can deal with smaller numbers faster. And that's all it is. The total number of bit throughput, if you normalize for floating point 64, we're not really getting that much faster every single generation. But we're also doing software that's better that doesn't need floating point 64 every generation. So he's not wrong if you look at the whole ecosystem of hardware and software, but it's still super misleading without unpacking that.
But Moore's Law is literally about the number of transistors.
Yeah.
And he is arguably the leader of the most powerful company in the world. I mean, even if they're not the richest, they have so much control over the entire industry right now. So when he makes an offhand comment, it has dire consequences for some people.
Quantum stocks drop as Nvidia CEO says that practical uses are some years away. And that was just a throwaway comment in this keynote. Also, his jacket gets shinier the more GPUs you buy.
Yeah.
It's his power level.
Yeah.
It's almost distracting. Like I was sitting there looking at it while we were talking about the story. I was just like, it's so shiny.
There was a lot of jokes that he had in it, and like no one laughed, and they weren't even like super nerdy. And I was like, you could lean into the nerdy jokes. Like if you're gonna write your own jokes, like go super hardcore. Go for the really obscure Star Trek jokes, but these jokes are terrible.
And that wasn't all that he announced. As we all know, well, they announced the new AI chips as well, and you can't afford them. But he's saying, hey, you the plebs, you also get to participate in AI.
Nvidia puts Grace Blackwell on every desk and every AI developer's fingertips. And it's the tiny little gold thing there in the corner. That is a $3,000 thing with a ridiculous connectivity. And you're going to be able to run 128 gig models on it at a reasonable speed. And he thinks this is going to be an amazing democratization of CUDA and all this kind of stuff. 200 billion parameter models just sitting there hanging out on your desk. And it's going to be glorious.
You know who would love to knock that off my desk? My cat.
This is a really strong level 1 predicts. So you know Qualcomm and how they're doing ARM and Windows on ARM and ARM. This thing's not running Windows, by the way. It runs Ubuntu. But Nvidia, probably over the next year, maybe over the next 2, is going to show us how it's done with ARM. And then Microsoft, once they get a whiff of the scent that Nvidia is putting down, then Microsoft's going to come around and we're going to have Windows on Nvidia's flavor of ARM. And they are absolutely going to beat Qualcomm at their own game with desktop computers on ARM. And it is going to be glorious. We're going to have gaming laptops with like an RTX GPU plus like these ARM cores. And like Nvidia is going to make that happen. And maybe Valve will get involved in it too. I don't know. But it's going to be glorious, and it's going to be a sight to behold. And Nvidia is literally going to out Qualcomm because Qualcomm doesn't even understand like how to make games run correctly on ARM CPUs. And it is going to be a sight to behold. Level 1 predicts.
And now we have a new form factor that is taking over the world because, young kids, a lot of them don't have computers. They're just all on their phone. But they want to play games, and playing games on your phone is awful. And so now we have a new generation who might only carry this.
AT&T shows off next generation of handheld gaming PCs at CES 2025. New ultra-low power, extremely high performance, and Valve officially blessing SteamOS on some of Lenovo's offerings. So you can get SteamOS on not a Steam Deck with the fancy pants new hardware.
And if you are one of those people who just uses your phone and you always want the newest phone because that's your social status in some way, Samsung's got a great deal for you.
Samsung is rolling out smartphone subscription next month. Mainly they want to sell you AI, but they'll also sell you a phone.
This feels like this is going to be like another level 1 predicts, but like no one's going to go for this, right?
I don't know. I mean, do you want the AI stuff? I don't know. They don't really have a great offering, I don't think.
Well, then who can afford this right now?
Well, most people get the phones and amortize the cost in their payments, right? So they're already kind of subscribing to a phone. If you refresh every year, you're basically subscribing to a phone.
I imagine that's a vanishingly small number of people, but maybe it's enough that it's worth doing that way.
I don't know. It's not as much as it used to be, I think.
Yeah.
And here is a beautiful thing that is finally available to us out here in the free world, the regular citizens. And I'm excited about this. This is a really cool thing. You should get one of these for your backpacking trips.
But I go on those trips to be away.
No. Starlink's new mini dish delivers portable high-speed internet on the go. Basically, you just take it out of your backpack, throw it down, and boom, 100 megabit.
Unfortunately, you do get throttled. There's a cap at the $60 plan, and the $165 plan is unlimited. That's also $600 for the hardware.
Starlink has also been advertising these as backup connections. So, like people in California and people that get snowed in, it's like you can run this off of a battery bank and have internet, a backup internet, so you can work from home even if your cabin out in the woods, the fiber goes down because a tree fell on the fiber line that they didn't bother to run underground because they're dumb.
So yeah, cool thing. I don't have Starlink, but I'm glad it exists. And China is looking to upend the whole arms race, with doing some open sourcing.
Chinese RISC-V project teases 2025 debut of freely licensed advanced chip design. and they've got a block diagram there of a very advanced RISC-V design. So I'll wait until I get my hands on it or see some more details. But, RISC-V is kind of accelerating, it seems.
And the screen stuff, like usually every year we'll get a hot new screen technology. And foldable phones, it seems, are out. Did you see that? I forgot to add it. They canceled the next foldable phone.
Oh, I didn't see that.
The world does not want them. But maybe you'll want this instead.
Lenovo's latest laptop has a rollable OLED screen.
So you can pretend to be a wizard.
It gets taller. That's what it does. It gets taller.
You can kind of see down here where like this is the part that's being, that's not part of the frame. That's your extra screen.
Oh, no. That's another viewport I'm going to have to account for in design.
And it's continuously variable. Like it could be any.
Yeah.
But that's also, that's not
It's
gonna
vertical, though, yeah.
It's not going to be wildly different because like the scroll.
Right.
It's not going to matter that much. But it's a weird, I always want to do side by side if I'm going to do multiple
if I need more
windows.
space, yeah.
So that'd be kind of hard to get used to. And AT&T had a big outage. It was very embarrassing, and it was 100% their fault. And so a lot of people said, hey, why should we pay you when you just knocked us offline for a couple of days? And they said, oh, we've got a new plan, star, 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 star.
After embarrassing blunder, AT&T promises bill credits for future outages. Really, this is not about the people or the complaints or anything like that. This is only because lawmakers and regulators were looking into this, because AT&T in the 1960s and 70s and 80s with landlines had very strict things that they had to adhere to. If you had 8 hours of an outage, you were probably not paying for phone service the entire month. And somehow, slowly, like the frog, we have gotten away from that. And AT&T is trying to dissuade regulators from revisiting those laws.
We should look into that for electricity.
So you will get, if you have an outage that lasts 20 minutes, you get the whole day for free, but they won't pay the taxes and they won't pay the regulatory fees. You still have to pay those. But it's all depending on how many towers were down. 10 is the cutoff. If 9 towers were down and your service was out, that doesn't count. You don't get a refund. But if 10 towers are out, you can get one day.
Why is that the line?
Because it's probably really unlikely that 10 towers are
Yeah,
down.
it's like I don't...
That pretty much only gets AT&T, like, we accidentally erased the configuration errors, not there was natural disaster errors.
Well, the boiler snake has thoughts about this, I think.
He uses AT&T and he hates it.
He's telegraphing us some thoughts, literally.
And Microsoft, what are they going to do with all that money they saved from laying off more employees? Well, probably this.
Microsoft expects to spend $80 billion on its AI-enabled data centers in fiscal 2025. And let me tell you, all my friends out there that do physical plant infrastructure, they are making more money than they ever have in their entire careers. We cannot build those cinder block buildings fast enough.
More layoffs, remember.
And
I went from programmer to someone who lays fiber inside a warehouse.
they've claimed that at least half of that will be in the U.S. So onshoring, maybe. Tesla, I think Musk has tried to appeal his loss of payment again. I thought it was over, but it probably is over. And it's also over for these guys, his board members.
Tesla directors to pay up to $919 million, almost $1 billion, to settle claims they overpaid themselves, including Larry Ellison, so the Oracle guys in there. It's like, oh, did we overpay ourselves? Oops. Okay, well, whatever.
The world's tiniest headline.
And Kimball Musk. What's his expertise?
That's weird.
He's Elon's brother, obviously.
But why would he be on the board of directors?
Oh, who could say?
Yeah, they've agreed to just give it back and like, oh yeah, we didn't do anything wrong, but we're just going to give $900 million back to you.
I don't think $900 million is a lot of those people. A lot to those people if Larry Ellison is representative.
What about their bunkers? They've got bunker payments to make.
They'll have to cut 2 positions on the workers for the bunkers. That's all. It's still going to get done. It's just going to take a couple extra days.
Microsoft is also saving a little cash by cutting off people who were secretly maintaining OneDrive without paying for it.
The unlicensed OneDrive free ride ends this month. So this is kind of fun. If you had a licensed user on OneDrive, you had all the storage, you could dump a bunch of files there, and then you could just delete the license. And Microsoft would still just keep storing the files indefinitely until you relicense them.
No, they won't. Usually this was done when people would like leave an organization, but they needed to keep that information to be able to reference it. But now it's just going to go away.
It's 90 days and then 90 days in a recycle bin after that. So you've got almost like a half a year.
And here's a fun little dark pattern. Bing, as usual, its best way to try to get market share is deception.
Microsoft Bing is trying to spoof Google UI when people search google.com. Yeah.
What is this? The Memphis? What's the name of this? I hate it.
Memphis style, I
hate
think, is the name of that illustration style.
But Google uses it so much that Microsoft is also using it to try to pretend to be Google.
I kind of thought that sort of had fallen out of favor as like a design pattern. So it's funny that they're still using it, like they're following Google's example, even though that's not really a popular style anymore.
But that style sort of represents the deception of, we're all in this together and we're all going to get along. And so it just exacerbates the no.
Well, like we are together in the rat cage, but Google and Microsoft are standing above it looking down.
And we seem to be covered in some sort of matter that is odious and wet.
And we're not allowed to say a lot of things. You might have noticed that we use alternative words or we won't read certain things in headlines. And that's because the advertisers want just pure, pristine, non-controversial content. And they're so aggressive that any little bit of reality cannot be tolerated.
Advertisers keep avoiding news sites and publishers have had enough of it. Yeah, all of our money comes from viewers like you. Thank you. We love you. It's amazing. But this article talks about how the New York Times had to couldn't get any advertising on one of their crossword puzzles, and it was innocent. It was completely innocuous, as is most of the things that we talk about here. It's completely innocuous, and yet algorithmically is just like, no, we're not going to do this.
Crossword puzzle could be fraught. We can't do that.
And things that are definitely not innocuous. This would be a good example. And we talked last week about Gravy Analytics, which has such a great name, but it's an evil, horrible monster of a company. And they had a security breach, which spilled all the details of what they have and where they get it.
Candy Crush, Tinder, and MyFitnessPal see the thousands of apps hijacked to spy on your location. So the Gravy Analytics thing was pretty much the worst case scenario that we have ever described on this program in terms of it knows your data and they have your data. And so they probably have more location data on you than Google does because they've got so many applications that use this. And so they've been collecting that and they've been selling it while hackers hacked it. And it's like, all right, let's see what you got. They had everything.
Now, all these apps made announcements and they're like, no, we don't do that, which is kind of true. They don't explicitly do it in their code. But in the ad platforms that they use, those ad platforms are able to extract that information, which is then sold, and companies like Gravy put it all together, and they get one big, perfect details about your life. They know everything.
They know when you go to the grocery store. They know when you're driving. And there's samples of the database. There are rows in the database where it's like, we think during this time they were driving. We think during this time they went to the grocery store. We think during this time this was the other thing that was happening.
They've been to Lowe's 10 times today.
Yeah.
And I was like, I should be immune to this, right? I don't have any of this stuff. But there was a lot of Microsoft apps.
Yeah.
And there's some Microsoft apps I have to use.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they're spying on me.
Yeah.
And we have our corporate appliance security breach of the week here.
Hackers are exploiting a new Ivanti VPN security bug to hack into company networks. Yeah.
It's remote access, zero authentication, run remote code. That's the worst thing you can imagine.
This week's Fortinet. Oh. Womp womp.
And Telegram they used to advertise themselves as end-to-end encryption. Come here if you want to not be monitored. And it must have been true because they arrested this guy in France and they were like, no, you will not do that. And that worked.
The Wiretap, Telegram handling data on thousands of users to law enforcement across the world because this guy got arrested in France and said that he would do this.
So whereas in the previous year they had 14 instances, this year they had something like 900. So they are no longer saying no. They are saying, please don't arrest him again. Don't trust it. And if you already didn't know that you shouldn't trust the DNA sequencing companies, here's another good reason not to.
Widely used DNA sequencer still doesn't enforce secure boot, so it could be running arbitrary firmware. But it probably, even if it had secure boot, it would probably have a lot of other security vulnerabilities. But that one's just like the basic one. It's a computer, and the computer doesn't verify the operating system in any way. Like so the secure boot part doesn't even really matter all that much, because I'm not really the world's biggest fan or advocate for secure boot. But basically, it's like, does the machine make sure that the software that it's running matches some reasonable, and the answer is no.
And gift cards. You shouldn't give gift cards. It's like financially, it's such a bad idea. It's really just a way for these companies to keep your money. But if you have to do it, maybe actually haul yourself out and go to the store for it because of this.
Online gift card store exposed hundreds of thousands of people's identity documents because they held on to them from now until the end of time.
Counterpoint. When you go to the store to get your gift cards, you may pick up a disease. I did a lot of in-person shopping this year, and I think that's where I got sick.
All right. DoorDash your gift cards. Can you do that?
I don't probably. I don't know if anyone DoorDashes.
But they're going to mark it up like 10%.
Yeah,
right? Yeah, gift cards are a terrible idea. These guys had an open database. Like it wasn't even a hack. They're just idiots.
Sometimes the grocery store gift card hack, though, is a great way to... it used to be that Netflix and other companies really didn't go out of their way to verify your identity when you would use that kind of stuff. And if you bought a Visa gift card, it's like, use your Visa gift card to prove your identity. They didn't care.
I know that Meijer, I think most grocery stores do this. You can buy bulk gift card credit and get a huge discount. So if you calculate your monthly grocery budget, which is only going to keep going up because of inflation, you can just at the beginning of the year, it's like, yeah, give me a bunch of gift cards. Mm-hmm. Give me 10% or 20% off the top of that, and that's my grocery budget for you. If you want to, you're trapping yourself into shopping at one place.
Yeah.
That would suck if your local one goes out of business. Then you got to drive. Or sell them online. And Wendell, you have betrayed yourself with this.
Yeah.
You've given up your privacy. We all have.
Is 10,000 steps a day worth your personal data? How about 80% of fitness apps are selling your privacy? I only use the Garmin app, and I've always told it no, and I'm using another Android app to fake my location, but I think it's still able to figure out stuff because the watch has its own GPS. And I'm like, oh, that's not good.
Probably reporting to insurance companies, right?
Well, it's hitting towers too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they gotcha.
Yeah.
But they pointed out basically every app. They did point out that the free ones were way worse than the paid ones.
But the paid ones were
sense.
still not like, they're like, what are you crazy? We're just leaving all that money on the table. We got to sell it. We got to sell it.
And the worst of all, Nike Training Club.
A lot of people have tried to get me to install MyFitnessPal, and I looked at it and I was like, I looked at one of the APKs and I was like, nope.
I feel like I can monitor that myself, to some degree.
My husband keeps
That's
a
hard.
notebook, just completely analog.
That's insane as well.
It is. It's a different type of insane, but
hey, can we really cast any aspersions at him when we read headlines like this?
No. It's just, where is that consumer protection thing that we heard about from the NIST? Like, cut the BS. We need the FTC in here to just be like, no, this must stop. You should not have an adversarial relationship with literally every piece of technology that you have that's more advanced than a screw.
Listen, SEAL Team 6 should be just search and destroy inside the Gravy Analytics building right now. They should be going floor to floor, and they should leave nothing alive.
Basically, half the employees are probably liable on federal charges of one thing or another. But yeah, I mean, it's just like...
Now we're going to do a RICO. It's all of them.
I mean, for the people to watch this program, they're basically all already there. Like, what do we have to do to convince the hearts and minds of everybody else? Because
You have to donate $1 million.
All right, we'll see you guys in the next one.